So one of the reasons why we really like doing an executive panel is because, all the speakers are fantastic, and the goal of those speakers is to really speak from 30,000 feet, right? If we're going to inspire somebody, let's back it up and take a really big picture of where things are at. But at some point, the rubber's got to hit the road, right? We need to do stuff. We also need to balance out the reality of how easy is it to implement everything we're talking about today. And what are the challenges that marketers and Canadian marketers specifically face in doing that? So we're really lucky that we have an amazing panel with us today to talk about some of these issues and challenges. So please join me in welcoming, first of all, the CMO of Tangerine, Andrew Zimakas. Andrew, come on out. How are you? Welcome.
Good. Thank you.
You sprinted from the back. I was like, oh my God, he's introducing us now.
Well, I was further away than I thought I needed to be.
Secondly, now this is a difficult name to say, so I'm going to do it in my best Spanish accent. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Director of Enterprise Marketing from Microsoft, Andre Leidenheimer Ruiz Soler. Was that good, yeah? Welcome, Andre. How did I do with the name pronunciation?
You got close.
What did you say?
You got close.
I got close. I'm closer. I'm getting closer.
Yes, you're getting closer.
I'm getting closer.
Good afternoon.
And please welcome the CMO of the Yellow Pages Group, Nick Gaudreau. Nick, come on out. Welcome.
Hi, Ron.
And finally, the president of Ariad Communications. Here's Mike Beckerman. Welcome, Mike.
Good to be here.
I feel like we're the behind-the-curtain male side of the dating game. And there's like there's a woman over there on the other side going like, if you were a car, what car would you be?
Do you think any of us would get chosen?
No, especially not the way I just imitated a female's voice, I think.
Just to be fair with the diversity, my team is 90% of females. So.
Oh yeah. Okay, nice.
Yeah.
And 3 of them are right there. Okay, so I want to start off, Andrew. I want to start with you. The first thing I want to talk about is Malcolm's entire talk was around transformation. But there were certainly elements of Denise's talk that were about brand transformation. And Scott was kind of ranting on why brands need to transform and do things differently. Now, Tangerine has you've gone through an entire brand transformation from ING Direct to Tangerine. And you didn't, you had to do it for legal reasons, but it's not like the business was failing and you said, let's make a new logo or, something like that. How has transforming from ING Direct to Tangerine now, how is it different, you think? What elements are at play that affect how you approached the rebranding of the bank?
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Great to be back, and hopefully you can hear me. I had a habit of holding the microphone a little bit low last year, so I'm very conscious of that this year. Good intro to the journey we've been on, Ron, with Tangerine, and not to make this a semantics exercise, internally and externally, we've talked about the name changing, the visual identity of the brand changing, but really the brand itself not changing and the DNA remaining intact. And that was really important for us to make sure that message got across both internally and externally. In terms of the journey and the process itself, it was fascinating and very different than what it would have been 10 or 15 years ago, at least in my experience. On a few levels. First of all, there was so much attention and focus put on all the different stakeholders and audiences that we were interacting with. So employees played a huge role in it. Obviously, our customers and our prospective customers, but we also looked at our brand ambassadors, we looked at influencers, we looked at a number of different stakeholder groups. So we had each of them in mind in terms of what we not only wanted to tell them, but how we wanted to engage with them.
Yeah.
The other part of this was it was a very collaborative process internally with a broad base of employees, but we engaged with our customers and with the public as well in a way that would have been unthinkable, partly through technology, partly through other means, but it would have been unthinkable 10 or 15 years ago. So a very, very collaborative, very transparent process to provide insight along the way in terms of why we were doing what we were doing.
And how, because we haven't talked about this, but I can only imagine that when it's something as massive as a name change, that there were people who said, I don't like Tangerine, and more that it's easier for people to complain to an organization, to a brand. How did you deal with the negativity, some of the negativity that I'm imagining came about because of the name change?
Well, I mean, in the spirit of transparency, which is obviously a value that we hold dear, we wanted to be as clear as we could about the fact that this wasn't a choice, and we had to do this. So that was really the why. And we went into this with the mindset that the name really had to reflect the brand, and the brand has really stood for being different. And so we wanted to choose a name that was different, and we knew that that would have some ramifications in terms of, some people obviously not getting or liking the name. We tried to explain it as best we could, but in the end, it was more important for us to be different and really reflect the true nature of the brand.
Yeah, awesome, thank you. Now, Andre, Denise this morning said, Microsoft is a good brand, not a great brand. And one, I'm assuming you disagree with her, but you guys, you've been around for 35. You've been like in the top 10 global brands consistently for a very, very long time. What's the perception that would lead somebody like Denise to say that?
Well, was this the easiest question you thought? I think, well, yes, I think there are many myths and realities to that. And being very humble, I think our company is being put in its shoes that we are now not the incumbent in a couple of areas. And we are challenging that. But there is something that has always been true about Microsoft, which is this desire, and that's the reality of being part of the fabric of life of our customers. Yeah. And I think there are so many perspectives how you measure a brand. So I wouldn't say I disagree with somebody that is studying the theme, but I would say that we like to see things on a different perspective, and I think that is the perspective to put things at, which is we are in the market for 35 years. We actually started our company before the end user graphic interface, and we are still in the business and being profitable and transforming our brand these days. Yeah. And when we look at and we see that we are still in 35 years in top 10, top 5, there's something we are doing right. Yeah. And I hope just that the company can continue to do that as we strive in this world of cloud first, mobile first. And just to add to Andrew was the point is I think we are realizing that more and more brand is not a abstract and tidy, that it really has to be part of our daily jobs. That we really need our employees representing that brand. And this is something our CIO is trying to embed in our culture. One of the first things we did was before we even reposition our brand, we established the core values we want that brand to have, yeah, and how we want our employees to behave towards that brand. So I'm very confident we will get there again.
Yeah, and I guess you're leading with the values so that you can go into, instead of leading with product, you're leading with values so that if you need to go into cloud, you can very easily go into cloud because the values are consistent from one line to the next, right?
Yeah, that's true. And I think one thing we realize is that we always been there, but do not necessarily our brand promise shows that clearly. And this is what we are pursuing right now on another transformation we are through.
Yeah. Now, Nick, I want to share a quick little story, and I should have told you this before, but when I started my career in advertising, one of the first projects I got given to me as a young 20-something was for the Yellow Pages. And my partner and I came up with a bunch of ideas, and the client was, it was a name I don't even remember. But we presented the work, and we had kind of messed around with the logo a little bit. And best advice in advertising was we presented the work, and he looked at me and he goes, "That's great, kid. Let me tell you one thing. There's one thing you need to know in advertising. You don't fuck with the walking fingers." You can tweet that out if you like. It's advertising 101 right there. Don't fuck with the walking fingers.
Was that a question?
But, you know, the fact that you're so well known, right? I mean, like, everybody knows the Yellow Pages. They know the icons. They know everything. And transformation, it's that kind of innovator's dilemma, right? Is how do you take an entire organization and move towards something that's completely different?
No, that's right. It's fascinating, especially talking about Tangerine, who there's a clear break in changing the brand. We decided to stay course with our brand and evolve it. Maybe a few words on the business transformation before talking about the brand transformation. Yellow Pages has been around for 100 years, and I believe, in my humble opinion, it's one of the biggest corporate transformation ever tried in Canada. 5 years ago, we were a single product company. 95% of our revenue was advertising in a print book. That's 5 years ago. Now, back now, 2014, we've got close to 45 or 50% of our revenue that's digital, and we're no longer a single product. We've got 10 products, so we've completely transformed the company. To support this, we needed to transform the brand, and it was a conscious decision we took, not to throw the baby with the bad water, but to take the brand, who's a 100-year-old brand, everybody knows it, great awareness, and great values, well respected, but anchored in the past, too attached to the print book. So we needed to evolve it to a digital. So we did play around a bit with the walking fingers. We changed the logo in 2010 as a signal of our transformation, but we gave new meaning to the walking fingers.
Is that the important lesson in this? That really far too many people look at brand transformation as the look and feel, the logos, the color palette, everything, when really that's the last part we should really be looking at. You have to start with the product, no?
Well, yeah. So what we did, we focused on the customer experience and the emotional attachment to the brand. Yellow Pages always stood for the local economy and thriving neighborhood, and that's how we repositioned the brand as a champion of the local economy in the neighborhood, and that's how we successfully transitioned toward a digital brand. We kept the name, we evolved the logo. But we focus as well heavily on the customer experience. We focus heavily on our digital experiences, our mobile, iPhone, Android apps, our websites. The emotional connection to the brand and the customer experience were the two key ingredients for us to achieve that transformation.
Great, thank you. Now, Mike, from an agency perspective, what are the challenges you're facing? Because clearly you're going in and saying, as the objective third party, hey, you need to transform this brand. What are the challenges that you're facing? Is it?
I think a lot of clients, certainly not clients that are smart enough to attend the Art of Conference or the Art of Marketing conference, but a lot of clients out there, I think they interchangeably use the words marketing and advertising, and they interchangeably use the words brand and logo. And so where we are is that we talk about a brand as a promise, symbolized by an identity, delivered through experiences. Okay? A brand is a promise, symbolized by identity, delivered through experiences. Clients want to spend 60% of their time talking to their partners and their mother-in-laws and those types of things about the identity system. Like you all in this room, I've spent a lot of time looking at research. I haven't seen a whole lot of consumer research that says I've developed an affinity towards a consumer brand because of its logo, right? And so we spend a lot of time with our clients talking about a clear articulation of what the promise is, and spending 20, 30% of our time on that. The identity system's important, and you want to be aesthetically clean, and it can tell a story and those types of things. But you're going to spend 5 to 7% of your internal energy on that. The balance of your time you're going to spend on the experiences, because that articulation of the promise needs to be delivered through the experiences. And where you're breaking that promise, whether it's in the quality of your merchandise, whether it's in your real estate strategy, whether it's in your frontline employees, where that promise is broken, That, my friends, that's your brand plan. The difference between the experiences and the promise and how you're going to bridge those things. And that's where you've got enlightened marketeers like these folks that recognize it's not an advertising job. You've got once in your consumer's lifetime to probably change your brand. You need permission from your consumers and your employees to do that by offering a parade of proof points that reflect the experiences and the promise that you're making out there.
Now, we've talked a lot about the transformation of brands. Here's my problem with it, that I find brands, they're not transforming, they're just adding on SKUs, right? They're just broadening their services, they're just standing for more. And we talk about, well, use your values to go into other areas. On one hand, we have a consumer that's choosing niche content. Craft beers are now very important, and organic food, and we're getting more specific in some of our choices. On the other hand, brands are going broader and broader and broader. Are we losing our focus? Are brands losing their focus, trying to be all things to all people?
I think that a lot of the brands that Denise highlighted as being great brands or good brands are one thing to, if not all people, then many people, and that has been consistent typically through their entire lifetime, which is in the consumer's mind, they typically stand for very few and often one thing.
Yeah.
In our case, it's simplicity. And so I think you use the word values, whether it's values or whether it's permission or whatever term you use to enter into adjacent spaces, into new products, into entirely new spaces. I think it comes back to how are you fundamentally delivering that point of differentiation or that value. And the really good brands or the great brands have figured that out, and it just intuitively makes sense to their customers.
Yeah.
Can I
course.
jump in on
Yeah,
that? Because big is not always better, even on the dating game here. So there's two things I'd like to share on
You went there, didn't you? You went there.
I can't believe I beat you. There's two things I'd like to share on this. I started my marketing career as 12 years with Nike, and I stumbled across a statistic that 80% of our basketball shoes never saw a basketball court. So only 20% of those shoes were getting purchased for its intended end use. And I said, oh my gosh, this is a great statistic. I went running to my boss's office and I said, holy smokes, we got to market to these 80% because we're going to move huge volume. And he said, Beckerman, let me sit you down. You're 100% wrong. You guys might remember a brand called LA Gear or Tommy Hilfiger. Like, they were fashion brands that chased after that 80%. What Nike did great was focus on authenticity. And as soon as Nike started to market to those 80% that weren't wearing the shoes for its intended end use, that's when we weren't relevant and authentic to the core basketball player, right? And that's when we lost our volume. So the relentless focus in terms of being authentic, in terms of your end consumer, I think is a key message. And it's not about being big, it's about being beautiful. And beautiful is sustainable, and it's relevant, and it's good business. The second thing I'd like to offer from an agency perspective, if I can, very few of you woke up this morning and said, you know what, I want to hire a new marketing agency, right? It's a pain to hire a new marketing agency. What's been interesting about Ron's agency and our content agency at Ariad is that a number of specialty agencies have emerged around the client table. As marketing has become more sophisticated, we need more tools, we need deeper subject matter expertise, so there's more boutique agencies and more subject matter expert agencies in social media or whatever that are emerging. I think it's great for the industry. The unsaid part of that conversation is that smart clients are no longer just managing 1 or 2 AORs or above-the-line agencies, you're managing 10 or 12 different agencies. And I think that's a very important part of becoming a big brand, is hiring agencies that have a same shared set of values as you do as a client and that are able to work together in a collaborative manner.
Awesome. Now, I'm going to bounce around a bit because there's a number of different topics I want to cover off. Scott mentioned this a little bit in his presentation this morning, that for the last, whatever, 5 years, we told people, why pay? Go social, build your community on Facebook and other platforms. And now that's changing. As the organic reach of those communities is decreasing over time, suddenly it's you got to pay to play. How is that going to change marketing, given what we've told people for the past 5 years?
I never thought like that, so I might be wrong or right here. But I think if you think about social and digital strategies, I always thought that you need to have a consistency strategy over time. I never believed in being free all up because you need to invest time, people, and money to understand how to tackle that opportunity. And I think if there is a message we all need to understand is this. Secondly, I think maybe the new business models we see in the market, they are radically changing what the customer behavior is on the other side. So like our advertising team just released a recent digital trends study we did in the Canadian market, for example. And there are many things there interesting for everybody to consume and see. It's available online. And it just changes how the consumers consume what we have to offer. One of the trends I like the most, there are many, I like that intelligently on, what we call being intelligently on. And I think this is very much not leveraged today by many organizations, which is the fact, the other day I was watching, I like Formula One, and I was watching, when I am watching Formula One, right. Sunday mornings, and in Canada it's 7 a.m., so I always get half of it. I'm not that fun enough to wake up so much, so early.
I was going to say, that's commitment.
Yes, but then I get this Williams Formula One message, then I sign up for her website. All of a sudden, in a few clicks, I'm totally connected with the brand and with the team and consuming that information. And I think throughout the organizations, and this is where I challenge the other marketeers, is we don't even understand that thing. Right. And we need to understand these trends to really be effective in social marketing.
Yeah. Nick, are we going to see the return a little bit to a better corporate website because we've been sending people away from that for the last few years? Is the website going to make a comeback now?
Well, the corporate website, should be a place where media and journalists and analysts would care about to go for business, but consumers and those who actually enjoy the brand, corporate website is one thing. I think back to the social media question, I never been a big fan of buying an audience. I think CMOs must concentrate their effort in building great experiences, building great emotional connection that people want to share, people want to engage with. And we should be spending far less time on convincing and spending money on ad, but rather building great experiences that's worth talking about.
Great.
If I can just build on that, Scott Stratton's piece this morning that was so entertaining was also so true in the sense that great social is, ultimately authentic. It's owned by the users, and paid social can help amplify elements of that where you're part of that conversation, but it can't manufacture that. And I think users who actually really, at the end of the day, own that content themselves will see through anything that isn't entirely authentic.
Yeah. Again, hopping around. So we pushed we told everyone social. We've been saying for the past couple of years, big data. Andre, what's the BS of big data? We all know there's value and benefit there, but what?
So BS stands for bullshit.
Okay. Yes, that would be it. Yeah.
Well, I think I would list two at least. I think I'd rather translate big data into the word insights because we talk a lot about data, but first two things I always see is nobody looks at the data in the end.
Right.
So we lose investments many times because what do we have the data for? But I think today what I feel talking to different groups of people and marketeers and sometimes even the teams we work with is the fact that we still struggle to understand what are the insights from the data, how you really understand the world you were living in by looking at a few figures and trends. And I feel that marketeers still struggle a lot with that. Maybe this is specific to the IT industry, which is so fast-paced.
Yep.
Maybe that's not very true on the consumer side. But I would list one of the bullshit. I would say that everybody talks about it. Very few people really do it. Yep. And that's my take on it.
Yeah, okay. Now, and Mike, because you interact with a number of clients, we've seen the role of CMO change. Now that big data has come in, and even if they're not analyzing it correctly, they're getting it, right? Have we created a CMO that is this two-headed beast now, that on one hand, hey, you're supposed to be a brand champion and creative and right-brained, and on the other hand, you're supposed to be analytical and data sensitive, and does that person exist?
No, I'll tell you that. No, that person doesn't exist, and there's a lot of headhunting firms out there that will tell you differently, but that person does not exist out there right now. I think on the evolving role of the CMO, there's a study out right now in the CMO. The first two things that they care about, one is around the customer journey and understanding the customer journey, and then making sense, number two, in terms of big data and analytics. The best CEOs I see out there right now, and somebody else said this, not me, is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I like that, okay? So I think the CMOs that are creating the right type of culture within their organization, a culture that engages and inspires so the best and the brightest want to come work for that organization, a culture that's customer-centric, a CMO that's equally happy talking to the CEO or the SVP of HR to figure out how they can get variable pay to the frontline employees so they're rewarded and recognized for doing a fabulous job with their customers, to a CMO that wants to sit around with the head of real estate and talk about the hub and spoke model and how that should reframe the square footage within the bank distribution network. Okay? So there's no CMO that's going to be two-headed. The best CMOs out there, I think, are the ones that are creating a culture that want to have all these positions come work for them. Information architects didn't exist 5 years ago. SEO experts, digital strategists, content specialists. That's not going to exist in one body, but hopefully that's going to exist in the culture of an organization, and the CMO is setting the tone and the vision for what that culture should be all about.
Nick, is it an accurate title?
Well, yeah, I would go as far to mention that, or to think that the term CMO is kind of passé or even dead. I like to think of myself as a chief growth officer, so a CGO. I think this is what CMOs of the future are. They're far less about only brand or advertising, and far less in the support marketing function that they used to, but rather central to the business strategy, central to rallying customer experience, IT, HR, to drive business results, to drive the growth of the company.
Yeah. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I would think of it slightly differently in the sense that at the end of the day, marketing is still about influencing choice and building brand equity to influence choice tomorrow. And to the extent that those are still key accountability areas of marketing, then I think a CMO moniker is appropriate, although I would agree with the fact that this is, at the end of the day, about driving growth.
Right. Now, is the CMO-CIO relationship, is that the most important relationship internally, do you think?
I think it's important. I question the amount of ink that's being spilled on that relationship right now is a bit overwhelming. And I think it does overshadow the fact that there are other C-suite relationships, and the one that immediately comes to mind would be the CFO relationship, which was sort of in vogue to write about 5 years ago, and you don't see as much right now, is still critical. And at the end of the day, the CEO still looks to the CFO as their most trusted advisor around the table. And this is, if it is about driving growth, this is about establishing credibility and ensuring that there's accountability behind what we do, and part of that accountability is financial accountability.
Yeah, because Andre, you guys have a really neat perspective on this in that the CIO is your bread and butter, right? That's who you sold to, the CIO and the CTO, and now the CMO is becoming more involved in those data decisions. So are you speaking to more CMOs now?
That's an interesting discussion. I think if I quickly count the amount of stakeholders my organization have, or our VP of marketing has, it goes to the hundreds. Maybe it's because of our size.
Yeah.
But the fact is, I think every relationship is important. What we are trying to do right now is to have key stakeholders in our organization holding the key relationship with our counterparts in other companies so that our CFO has a connection with the CFOs in our customers and so on. This is what the way we are driving right now. But internally, yes, I think we still benefit a lot from the CMO-CIO relationship, but I would generalize that. I would say that as everything in life, the right strategy is the balance.
Right. Just want to make sure we save some time for audience Q&A. So if you've got some, I will be coming out with a handheld. Mike, what trend do you think that we should ignore because it's just going to go away? Is there something that's just getting way too much airtime?
I was very pro QR code till this morning.
And 8 cats died in your wake.
So that one goes away.
Yeah, I think somebody actually tweeted, I think the art of, does your badge have a QR code on the back or something? Yes? No? Oh, someone fake
The
tweet.
trend I hope goes away, with all due respect to the previous question, is the notion that you're going to be able to out-organizational design or out-title your competitors. I think what you want to be doing is you want to be hiring magnets, not literally, but figuratively, in terms of people that are going to be drawn towards working with each other in a collaborative fashion, right? One trend that's not going to go away is starting with the consumer. Like, what it is that we're all trying to do is we're trying to help the buyer buy, right? And whether it's the CIO or the CFO or the head of market research, if you're starting with the consumer and understand them attitudinally, demographically, behaviorally, technographically, and you can walk them through that customer journey by making sure that you've got the right content in the right place at the right time that's providing value, like, that's what we're doing. And none of us were at the Art of Marketing conference in 1924, but I gotta believe that's what they were talking about as well. So it's an exciting time to be a marketer. I hope one of the trends that goes away is senior level marketing attention that gets distracted by the shiny pennies and the next new technology out there. It's about the consumer, and it's important that we never lose sight of that.
By the way, hosting the Art of Marketing 1924, Ron Tite the first. He was a silent film star, of which many of you are wishing I was too, right? Yeah. Nick, what do you think? What trend is getting way too much airtime?
I think it's very dangerous to put away any trend, as a matter of fact. I believe in the term agile marketing. So back to your question, the CIO, CMO, in the technology world, we've talked a lot about agile technology, agile development, as opposed to big, long, waterfall development. I think the same applies in marketing, and I like to talk about agile marketing, or it's been coined as well, growth hacking, and being very nimble, trying things out, putting stuff in the market, piloting and reacting and going forward. I think the world is moving so fast, it's very dangerous to say that I will ignore, and we got to try a lot of things and be able to react and capitalize on the learning very quickly.
Yeah. And we'll flip it to what trend is not getting enough attention, Andre? Where should we really be focusing?
I think that trends over time, maybe they come to advise us things we are not properly looking at that moment.
Yeah.
Because, for example, if you get back to the question on big data, data always been there.
Right.
The thing now is that technology can help companies in a fraction of the cost to really take advantage of the data, but data always been there. So is it really big data a trend or not? It's questionable. But the fact that technology today is an enabler. The other thing is, I think in customer behavior in general, one of the trends, at least we see marketing being told by sales organizations usually like, you have to do more, you have to do more, you have to do more. But maybe it's time now to stop and really think what are the right things to get done. So one trend I think I would call out again is this digital trends thing and the study we just released, because I think there's many things in there that when I look at them, I said, oh my gosh, we are far away from really leveraging this and really understanding how the customer is behaving on the other side. Last but not least, I think, going back to one of the trends that is going, I think when companies went online, we were going online to get rid of certain costs and to be more productive, but we forgot that we still need an eye-to-eye with the customer, even if the eye-to-eye with the customer is done virtually. And I think these things, there's many things in my mind right now, but I would say that these are some of the elements we are working on the background.
Can I jump on two trends that I'd love to see happen moving forward? And I think the folks in this room own it and visually see it right here. I think we as marketing leadership, both on the agency and the client side, must do a much better job in terms of gender diversity and ethnic diversity at the senior levels of our organization. It's not just the right thing to do, it's good for business, because that's who our consumer is.
And we can start with this panel, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
I'm with you.
I'm just saying.
I'm with you. But it's up to us. I don't know, there's 1,500 people here. You paid a couple $100. It's important to you in terms of what our industry is about and what we stand for, and we've got to do a better job in terms of standing up for that. And so I vote that becomes a trend moving forward. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, great. Andrew, what's one trend that's not getting enough attention?
Mike stole the QR code joke earlier, so I'm blanking a little bit on that. But I think we get a little bit caught up in trends that are, within our own functional area, and I think a really important trend that gets some attention, but I think should be getting a lot more for the CMO and his or her organizations is around what I would call the blurring of brand space. So, for example, in financial services, you've obviously got the banks and other FIs, but you've got increasingly technology companies moving into that space. You've got retailers, you've got telecom companies, and I think part of the role of the CMO, regardless of whether there's a chief strategy officer or not, is to really understand that and understand that ultimately, increasingly, consumers are buying brands and brands they trust. And I think that we all need to understand that and understand how that blurring is really going to affect broader strategy, but also the way in which we market and the way in which we build our brands.
Yeah, awesome. So I'll come out to the audience. Andrew, can I borrow your handheld and you and Andre can share? So just put your hands up nice and high for those. I find when it's a big room like this, people are a little shyer. They don't want to put their hand up and ask a question because there's only 2,000 people here who would say, who would ask a dumb question like that? But don't let that intimidate you. And yes, over here, there is an aisle over there, sorry.
Hi, guys. I was surprised to hear one of you use the term above the line. I would have thought that would be long gone. Above the line, below the line. That was a popular phrase when I started in media over 20 years ago. Anyone want to comment on that?
Not after that question, no.
So
Moving
to
right
Denise's
along.
earlier point, there is a real echo in here, but I think the question was, why hasn't above the line as a term disappeared?
Yeah, why are we still saying above the line and below the line?
I think it sounds quite important. That's above the line, and I think it's a catchphrase that's used in different contexts, so it's even more confusing than it probably needs to be, and it probably should disappear. And I don't have a good answer for you, other than the fact that it sounds sort of important, and so does below the line, for that matter. So I don't know if you guys have another point of view on that.
Well, Mike,
I think most of us are probably talking about through the line, and I haven't heard above the line and below the line in a while. And so you've got to be line agnostic, you've got to be channel agnostic, you've got to do what the right thing is for your customer. And I think where it starts really is from the planning side. Is like how many of our planning processes start with, well, this is what my DM budget was last year, and this is what my PR budget was this year, and this is what my POS budget was last year. I think if we can liberate ourselves from our planning process and not plan in fiefdoms and lines of businesses and plan from a customer-centric perspective, the lines will be beautifully blurred.
And just to build on that, they are not customer-centric words, and it's not the way that the customer thinks about how they experience your brand. So if we could start right now to get rid of it, I would vote for that too.
I second.
You just don't want to say we do lines. You just don't want to say that.
Hi, as a starting company and as a small entrepreneur, being on your own and trying to start up your company, what would you put as the top 4 most valuable things to do with a very tiny marketing budget for a kind of a solo act? What would be the best things, the 4 top things in your mind that I could do as a business owner to get the best
Biggest bang for your buck.
Hey,
I think it's
Ron,
drifting below
why
the-
don't we do this democratically? Why don't you do one, I'll do one, and then we'll go down the panel. We got 4.
Sure. You want me to start? What should you do? I think a clear articulation of your values as an organization. However collaborative you want to do that, because it starts there. For those Simon Sinek fans out there, it starts with your why, and you can't really move forward until you get that. Next.
Number 2, it was interesting now that they asked you the question, you need to understand the question more. Usually you just pass it along. Number 2, I'd make sure that you are providing value or utility to your consumer. Just because we think it might be a good idea, might not necessarily think that the consumers thinks that it's a good idea. So I love the word utility because it's providing value to your end user.
Yeah, I agree. The brand is only what people will think of you when they close the door. And it has to be about the brand promise and the brand experience, or the customer experience that echoes the brand. It has to be the engagement at the customer level.
I would say don't forget about your first customers and make sure you're always there for them and that you deliver your promise.
Did we get a 5th? Okay, 5. I think it's a very personal choice to go into business for yourself, and it's a hard road, but a potentially rewarding road. And I would say determine how you can inject fun into what you do, because that'll really come out to your customer as well.
That's awesome. Those are great answers. We're at the back. Right back here. There we go.
Excellent, thank you. I have a question more so for the brands. Just asking around from a digital marketing background, more specifically advertising technology. Mike, you kind of touched on this, but what are you doing to kind of incorporate digital into your overall marketing strategy?
At Yellow Pages, digital is weaved through the entire process. There's no department of offline and department of online. I mean, it's completely integrated, and we never think of these two as different worlds.
Yeah, I guess from our side, be humble enough to offer up solutions that are in our client's best interest, and recognize when we don't have the subject matter expertise, to be clear that we don't have the subject matter expertise, but man, maybe it's a PR solution for you here, or maybe it's a solution in terms of manufacturing or production. So being truly channel agnostic and not predisposed to the right solution based on the expertise of the people in the room.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Given that today it's so much about the bottom line and revenue, but marketing also plays such an integral role into the organization, would you say that it's changed today in terms of marketing-led sales-driven or sales-led marketing-driven?
It's hard to hear here.
Is sales leading marketing, or is marketing leading sales?
I don't know why it matters. Right? Like, we do get into this rhetoric and theory as marketeers, and we spend time debating the role of the CMO and those types of things. We're helping the buyer buy, right? We're working the customer through the customer journey so they're purchasing our product at the end of the purchase cycle. And we want to reward and engage and provide a fulfilling experience for that consumer so they try us again and they tell their friends about it, right? So is marketing leading sales or sales leading marketing? Spend 45 minutes in your breakout groups and come back and discuss. Not a good use of the 45 minutes.
I would say that the best results we got so far ever, and every time we execute marketing, is when we do together. So I don't see that barrier.
Are there any salespeople in the room who want to disagree? Because you know the salespeople know, they just like, no, we do it. We have time for one more question. I'm sorry to all of you who I know you're very eager with your question, but I'm right here.
Hi, what role does social media play in the overall marketing scheme, and how do you determine the ROI? And I'll just tell you, I just did a project on Microsoft, and we were scrambling to try to figure out an ROI on social media. So I would love to hear all of your perspectives.
So
In other
I'm
words,
trying
could you
to
finish
make
his
sense
assignment
of-
for him?
It's very hard to listen here. So,
How do you measure social media?
okay, so how do we measure social media? Thank you. Otherwise, I was going to say, meet me outside. I'll answer for you there. I think we are much more instrumented today on the consumer side of our business, and we have many tools today to do that. And we work with a couple of agencies and tools that enables us to see real-time results on when we leverage social media to do marketing. And it's a very long conversation, but we really do have a great practice on that side. Where we are learning right now, and I think sometimes even our competitors say they do it, but frankly speaking, I've been following up on certain things they do, and I don't really think, I didn't see so far a very good practice in the B2B world around digital, and we are investing a lot of time, at least at Microsoft recently, to tackle that challenge. I hope that answered the question, because it was really hard to listen.
Yes, had I known you were going to use the term ROI, I would have gone on to somebody else. I'm sorry. No, just kidding. Thank you very much to all of you. Those are some great insights there, and it really allows us to connect the inspirational to the realistic. A big hand for all of our guests on the panel today. Thank you.